Hi, babe. It's just us today. Just me and you.
Just
the two of us.
Yeah.
12 is a good number in the Bible.
It is.
And marriage is pretty good.
It's a good thing, too.
So we're going to talk about the 12 myths of marriage.
If it's Christian, we're talking about it. This is the Mike Charleston Show.
All right. Well, welcome to the Mike Charleston Show. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for listening. If you're listening on all the podcasts, whatever podcast catcher you're listening to. So today, it is just us. It is just my wife and I, Sarah.
I'm here.
Chuck's on vacay, and I guess that's it. Larry's been gone for a while, but It's just us. So no interviews, no anything. But we've been talking about this for a long time, that we wanted to talk about stuff on marriage. And since we don't do the marriage segment anymore,
that
was
don't.
last season.
But we do have a lot to say about marriage.
We do, and we were running. Thank you. We were waiting for that. We were looking at some articles and different things, and this is a fun one. Just 12 myths. And as I was telling you, I said I don't want to find ones that are absurd. Of course these are myths. Who believes this? I don't think we have it down here, but one was like marriage isn't 50-50. Like, how many times have we heard that?
Right. Or there was another one that says marriage takes work.
Oh, you didn't use that one?
No, I didn't. I was like, okay, I think everybody knows that marriage takes work. So.
Well, maybe not. Maybe some people don't.
Maybe not.
Well, but anyway, myths, so some of these we're going to go over. There is slight truth to them, there might be, but a myth is something that everyone kind of believes, and we're going to kind of talk through that and just is this something you should believe? So having expectations going into a marriage can be very troublesome at times.
It can, but I don't think it can be avoided, because I think in all of life as humans, we have expectations, and marriage is a pretty big change in life. So I don't think you could go into marriage with no expectations.
No, but if you have proper expectations, that would help. And there's some people that go into marriage very negatively and this is not going to work out. And hopefully you're not watching this show if you're doing that. But there's a lot of people who will... That are Christians, and they just think everything's going to be fine and everything's going to work out and everything's going to be perfect. And we hope so. Yeah. That would be great. But realistically, there are going to be things that come up. And so we're going to talk about some of the myths that some people, maybe even listening today, believe. And maybe we could talk about those things.
That's what we're going to do.
So... the countdown begins. What is number 12? No, number 1. Number 1. Yeah, these aren't in order of importance or anything. These are just kind of random. We jumped around a bunch of websites, and some of these were, people had these things on there a number of times, so we went with some of these. We came up with a few of our own, I think.
We did.
Yeah. So anyway, what is number 1, babe?
So number 1, I have my spouse is going to make me happy.
What? You don't make me happy?
I hope so.
No. So obviously we would like to make each other happy.
Right.
But the myth being that this is what my spouse is there for, is to make me happy. That is not true.
Yeah.
Whoever says that is true. In fact, there's only one person that can truly make you happy, and that is God.
Right.
Christ alone.
I think, when I'm talking to people about marriage, especially to our kids as they were getting closer to marriage, I'm like, you need to make sure that you find your joy, your fulfillment, everything that you need through Christ. Because if you're thinking, oh, well, once I get married, then, he's going to fill all these holes. I'm like, that's not going to happen.
And I'm glad you even said that, joy, because specifically, even God doesn't always make us happy. It's just happy is more of a happenstance situation. But to have true joy only comes from God. And then we can give that to others, and then we can make each other happy. Right. But that is not the goal, is to make each other happy. That is a nice byproduct.
I think it would be great if you would strive to make me happy, and if I strive to make you happy, and that's great. But if you're going into marriage thinking this is what's going to happen, I'm like, you're probably going to be disappointed.
If there's a guy involved, no, that's not going to happen. So all right. So that's number 1. What about number 2?
All right, number 2. Healthy marriages are conflict free.
So conflict free. We didn't want to say fighting or arguing, but some kind of conflict. With disagreements. The healthy marriages are conflict free.
Right.
Okay, for one, show me that marriage You know, and then if you say you found that marriage, I don't know if that would be healthy, because a healthy marriage is going to have some kind of conflict. Life has conflict.
Right.
And it's not that conflict is the problem. It's what you do with the conflict.
Yeah.
So how do you handle the conflict? How are you ever going to grow if you never have some kind of conflict, some kind of disagreement? And so that's the challenge. You have a thought, I have a thought.
Right.
And then we work on that together, and we grow in the process, and we learn something about each other.
Yeah.
But if we just all bury what we keep, what we have inside, and be like, "Oh, I don't want any conflict. I'm not going to let them know how I feel about this situation." Well, man, 20 years of that, you're going to blow up one day. You're just going to be like, "I've had it.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the dishes in the sink." And you're like, "Well, you've never complained about that before."
Yeah.
But,
Well, I mean, I just think even in life, being a new grandparent, you just watching babies grow and learning to crawl and learning to do different things. It's like you want to protect them and keep them from ever falling.
Sure.
But if
That's
you
how
do
they
that,
learn.
then they can't ever learn. So I'm like,
Right.
you're going to have to let them fall, and they get little bumps and bruises and whatever along the way through
Yep.
the years. But I'm like, but there's no growth without that.
Yeah,
So.
like no absence of fighting equals good marriage. I don't like the term fighting, because people that understanding of what a fight means,
Right.
it means a lot. When I say that, I'm thinking of we just have a disagreement, but sometimes a real fight can be ugly.
Yeah.
And so we're not really talking about that. We're talking about conflict here.
Right.
Any kind of conflict, from great big or great small, very small, any kind of conflict. It's actually conflict is going to happen, even if a conflict free. Whether it comes from outside. What if we're doing fine, but there's conflict against us?
Right.
People accusing me of something, or we have to walk through that together and figure those things out. So conflict is going to happen. It's not about the conflict. It's about how you deal with the conflict.
Absolutely.
That is way more important.
Absolutely. So number 3, we have good, healthy marriages come naturally when you marry the right person.
Well, yeah. Well, it's easiest for us to say this because we married the right person, right?
I did.
Right. So yeah, it's this is a myth. The right person, for one.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as the right, quote unquote, the right person.
Right.
You got married to someone, that is the right person.
The right person.
That is your spouse. There is no 5 years down the road, I didn't marry the right person. No, you know what? Neither one of you are right. Both
No.
of you are sinners, or we're sinners.
Right.
You're fallen creatures, and you come together and with baggage and sin and all these things. And of course, we want to focus on Christ and His forgiveness and grace and all that, and that's great. But we're human, and there's these things that just rub up against us, and so healthy marriages to. Marry the quote unquote right one. Well, no one in this room is perfect.
Right.
So how do we know it's the right one, the one that fits us just perfectly?
Well, it seems like people generally, when they start to have problems, when they start to really, really, really not like their spouse, they do start to question,
It's not the right one.
maybe I did marry the wrong person. And because there is, at least when I was growing up, there was a lot of emphasis on, seek God and know if this is the person you're supposed
Sure.
to marry, ask God, and you need to know that that this is the right person,
Right.
And so then if, into the marriage, I'm starting to have problems, I begin to question,
I must have missed it.
maybe I was wrong.
Right, I missed it.
And so that's the idea,
Not
but
the
it's
right
like, well,
person.
that's the wrong thought, because
Right.
at this point, you're the right person, and I'm going to have to make it work.
That's
So.
where the problem comes in, because you start praying and seeking God for that right person.
Yeah.
And there's nothing necessarily wrong with like seeking what God wants.
Right.
But to have that right person, then that leads you up to have that failure later on, where if it's not working out, well, obviously it wasn't
Yeah.
the right person. And that's nonsense. You are married, you made a covenant, that is the right one now. God
Yeah.
expects you to work it out now.
Yeah.
And to work it out you are the right one. Work
Yeah,
it out.
exactly.
So, yeah.
All right, so number 4, I have my spouse will know what I want without me asking.
Oh, boy. I don't know who says this. Must be women. But women do expect more of this than guys do, probably.
Right, so I don't have to ask you for what I want. I just expect that you're going to know.
Right. Now,
Inconceivable.
exactly. There's just, You would like to think that as we get to know each other, we've been married 25 years, and you do know me. I know you.
Yeah.
You know me. You know what I like and what I don't like, and you could probably tell when I'm talking to someone. You're like, oh, I can just tell this is irritating him, or oh, he's really enjoying. There's things that you're going to. I would expect you to know about me, but what does it say? How does it say? My spouse will know what I want without asking.
Right.
That's unrealistic.
Yeah.
And so it's not anymore unromantic to ask, what do you want?
Right.
Just be upfront and be like, this is what I want. Now we can discuss what we want. Is that good for what we're going to be doing? Mm-hmm. But don't let them guess. I mean, because then that expectation, like, oh, he didn't guess. That means he doesn't love me. He doesn't care for me.
Right.
And that's not true. That is not true. Maybe he is dense and wasn't really paying attention. But that's life, man. We don't always pay attention to everything. And you expect that one little detail, like, well, he should know that I like chocolate. And that, especially on Fridays, and I'm like, wow, that I forgot. Sorry. I didn't know it was Friday.
Well, the thing is, none of us are expert.
Is today Friday?
No, none of us are expert mind readers.
No.
And so, everybody, when you're going into marriage, what's the one thing you hear is communication. And it's not just let me communicate when something bothers me. It's also if I have hopes or I have things that I really think are important or I want to do, I have to tell you. Right. I can't expect that you're just going to somehow know that this really means a lot to me and I think I need to do this.
I like to think I'm very spiritual, but man, I'm not that spiritual to read your mind all the time. I don't have a word of knowledge every day. And so, coming and telling me these things, what you hope, what you wish for, what you want, what is on your mind is very, very important. And guys too. Sometimes guys will say that too, but most of the time when guys say it's because they don't really know what they want. And so like, hey, you know what I want.
Well, and I think also just because I've said it once doesn't mean, well, because I already told you. I'm like, sometimes ladies, you have to repeat things.
It's okay. And sometimes, because you might change your mind.
Well, right. You might change your mind or time has passed or whatever. It's like, how can you know that I told you before that I wouldn't want to do whatever. Yeah. So how come you don't remember? And it's like, we just can't expect people to remember.
Well, and as we get older, memory goes quicker.
Exactly.
So, okay. So moving on.
Okay. Number 5, having children helps couples in struggling marriages.
Look, the Bible says that children are a heritage of the Lord. They're a blessing. The Psalms talks about it being a heritage and all these things. Children are wonderful. We have 7 blessings and 7 heritages. I don't know, 1 heritage, but we have many blessings in our life. We know many people that have much more or they have fewer. It doesn't matter. Kids are wonderful in a marriage. If you are having problems, though, that is not a fix. Usually what that is a distraction. And you think that it's going to help because it worked before. Like we were having issues and we had a kid. And so I put my time and effort in my kid.
Right.
And he put his time and effort in his work. Well, time goes on. We have another one. Oh, okay. That's a distraction. So it kind of helps. That's why there's this empty nest problem. So when people finally get to the empty nest, all the kids are gone and they look at each other and go, I can't stand you. Because you haven't been dealing with the relationships we'll talk about later in one of the other myths. But that's really the main problem is that, children take a lot of work. Yeah. It is a lot of work. And if you are already having problems in your relationship to add another problem, like not saying kids are problems, but it's a lot of work and a lot of headache, you're going to ignore the other big problem. And it's just you're kicking it down the road a little bit here.
Yeah. Well, I think some people maybe have the idea that having a child is going to unite us together a little bit.
Like you could trying to have one and we'll do that, but yeah.
This is, our baby and, they come and they're so sweet and small and delicate and you just think, wow. And sure, you can have some sweet moments, with a newborn or,
But eventually you go back to who you are.
Well, exactly. Right. And I'm like, those moments are sweet and they're wonderful, but I'm like, there's also going to be lots and lots of difficult moments and disagreements and
sleepless nights and they don't always go to bed. And then we argue about how to discipline them and they did this and what do you do? Right. And it's not going to help the problems. Now, I'm not saying you should not have kids because you're having issues. Sometimes it just happens, and but if you're purposely saying, hey, we're having problems, we should probably have another kid. No, that's.
Yeah.
How about you fix your problems, and then out of joy and peace and love, you
Right.
bring forth children.
Okay, so number 6, if we keep our finances separate, we won't fight about money.
No, so we did a whole episode on this, I think, a while
think so,
back,
yeah.
or maybe it was a segment in our marriage thing about keeping finances separate, and I don't think that's a good idea ever. We are one unit, and I know some people, like for the sake of ease, where it's this gets controlled by this account, this one gets. To me,
Yeah.
I don't know how that's easy, but just put it all in one big lump sum and then divvy it out from there. But yeah, to say that I keep my checking account or finances separately so we don't have money fights is silly.
Yeah.
You really think you're not going to have money fights just because you keep it separate?
Right. So, I mean, even if we say, okay,
This is your money, this is my money.
Let's just take our play money.
Oh, we got play money now.
And
Oh,
so
I like
you
this.
get this much a month.
How much play money do we have?
Not much.
Oh, I don't like this game.
So you get so much for play money and I get so much for play money. That way we don't argue about how you're spending your fun money or whatever. But I'm like, still, you don't think...
But then I spend my money on something you really don't care
Yeah,
for.
I'm still going to be like,
Right.
seriously, that's what you're going to spend it on?
That's what you're going to eat?
I
That's
mean,
what you're
because we
gonna-
live together. So,
Right.
I mean, we're going to know.
You're going to spend your money on those clothes? Ugh.
Wow.
I don't know. It's keeping anything separate in marriage is generally not a good idea. I'm sure there might be something that is just like, why does it have to be together and why can't it be separate? But
Yeah.
specifically finances, anytime you're dividing it, you can make excuses for it and say, well, this is why we do it. And that's fine. If it works for you, do whatever. But I'm just saying if you're
Yeah.
thinking you're going to avoid fighting about it, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I just think in marriage, trying to separate more is not the goal. The goal is we're trying to come
Right.
together. So even if we say, how about we keep our phones or our computers or our friends or whatever separate so that, we don't...
Yeah, speaking of computers, we probably have to separate a little bit more because we share everything, our Apple ID number, and it causes all kinds of problems. I'm like, I get in your text messages, you get my text anyway.
Well, and all my friends are texting me saying, why is your picture?
I don't know what happened
Not
there.
you anymore. Like, I don't know. So
it's
whatever.
my fault, I'm sure.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, number 7, differences will ruin your marriage.
See, I don't know this myth. Maybe we're not out there in the mainstream, what are people talking about marriage? But if this is what people are believing, it's kind of silly because I think differences is what makes us unique people.
I guess, though, there's a broad range of differences.
Oh, sure.
So if I'm a Christian and you're Muslim, that's a big difference.
I'm just thinking like differences as in, I don't know. I mean, obviously guys and girls by nature are different.
Right.
So we're going to see things differently. We're going to do things differently. But just in our personalities, we're going to be a little bit different. And I think that's what attracts us is sometimes, opposites attract, in some ways. Not all the times.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that I'm like, oh, I really like that about my spouse because I'm not really good at it. Or, these differences are a good thing, But I could see how the differences, if you're thinking about like a Friday night and this always gets brought up, well, what movie do you want to watch? And I want to watch a shoot 'em up movie. I want to watch a romance movie or something.
Yeah.
You're going to have differences. It would be nice if we just liked the same thing. Wouldn't it be nice? But if we always like the same thing, I can live with myself.
Right.
But it's you got to enjoy and embrace those differences. Now, if the differences are sin and those differences are divisive, kind of like what you were saying earlier, where I'm a Christian, you're a Muslim, which is not true, but that would be a huge difference.
Right.
That's divisive almost.
Yeah.
But we're just talking about differences. It's okay to have differences.
It is. And I mean, they can be problematic. I mean, you think about when you have kids, and if you think that kids should be disciplined a certain way, and I think they should be
That's a big
disciplined a
difference.
very different way, well, that's going to be a difference that we're going to have to really work through and talk about and come to some compromise or something where we can get on board and be on the same page.
The way I look at it is differences bring you a chance to be closer together because you have to work those things out. I have to respect you as a person, on a silly level. Like I like pickles, you don't like pickles. And I tease you about that. I'm like, here, just try this one. You might like this one. And you're like, no. But then on a serious level where it's maybe different convictions or something where I'm a little bit more free and like, hey, I want to listen to this music. And you're like, hey, I don't want to listen to that music. Well, I got a choice then. Like, do I just use my freedom, or what do I do? So I have
Right.
to learn to grow and mature and learn my wife or learn your husband, depending on who you are.
Right.
So, differences are a chance to grow. That's what I would say.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, number 8, never go to bed angry.
All right, this is a good one.
And of course, this one comes
yep.
from Ephesians 4:26. Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath.
So you hear this all the time. And look, I believe this for many years, and I believe the concept of this.
Yeah.
So this is Ephesians, and if you really take it literally, take it at its face value, then all of our arguments have to be over by 6 o'clock. It didn't say by the time you go to bed. It says when the sun goes down.
Right.
So like 6 or 7 o'clock in the wintertime, we got to get done before 5.
We have much less time to figure it out.
So let's start our argument at 6 o'clock in the evening, and we have all night, all day, and then we can finish. No, it's just that we want to take care of it as soon as possible.
Right.
And there is times where, we've had disagreements, and it's just late, and then you're starting to fall asleep. I'm starting to fall asleep. And then it's like, what are we even discussing?
Right.
At this point,
Yeah, we're just
can we
too
just
tired.
save it for the morning and talk about it when we're both awake? And the idea here, though, is you want to take care of it as soon as possible.
Right.
But you don't have to be a legalist and the sun is going down. We have to finish this argument, or else, or else what? So it's everyone that I knew growing up. It was like before you go to bed.
Right.
The sun is already down, so if you want to take it literally, but I get it. It's like, hey, let's deal with this. But there might be a time where you do just need to take a break and rest or whatever. I don't know. Some of these issues in people's lives, they're not going to be fixed in just 1 hour. There's going to be a lot of talking, a lot of prayer, and a lot of working out some things.
Right.
And so this, you would like to think things could just be fixed like this.
Right. So we have a problem. Let's go talk about it. You tell me what you think. I'll tell you what I think, and then let's just work it out. But some things take a lot more work.
Right. So never go to bed angry. I would suggest that's not really a myth. That's a command. Never go to bed angry, but you should never go to bed angry. I would tend to agree with that somewhat. It's really not good to go to bed angry in general.
No, it's not.
But the myth being that going down, not having your argument and before you go to bed, let's just carry it on to the next day. Can we agree to pause and just go to sleep and move on? Obviously, there's going to be some maybe intense discussions, and you're just, now's not the time for me to say, I'm going to sleep. You're like, I'm in the middle of something here.
But it also shouldn't, hopefully your discussion, your arguments, whatever, shouldn't go for days and days and days. It's like we do need to resolve. We need to come to some answers and not just
The only time I could see that coming up is when you've had history of just making bad decisions and arguing, and so you're really trying to fix it. It's not going to be fixed in 1 hour,
right?
But you're going to have to work through some things, and sometimes it takes some time. And maybe we could take a pause. Let's finish this up tomorrow, and so on and so forth. But okay, next one.
Okay, number 9. Happy couples do everything together.
Well, of course we do. We do everything. We do a podcast together. We cook together. We go shopping together. No, we don't. We don't.
Who's this we?
We don't. It's okay that we don't do everything together. I know young couples, they're like, oh, we're going to do everything together. And that's cute. And I mean, I'm not saying you can't do everything together, but happy couples do everything together. That's a myth. We can be happy, and I can let you go to the store. I can go to work. We don't have to work together.
Right.
But the idea of marriage is becoming one.
Yeah. So again, it's better the more we can find to do together. I think it's great.
Yeah. I mean, when the Bible says the two shall become one, and you cleave together, you are becoming one more and more and more. So the more things you do together, I don't care if it's entertainment or work or whatever it is, the more you can do, it's probably not a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, as a wife or as a husband, I think the goal would be to try, if at all possible, to learn to enjoy the things that your spouse enjoys so that and it's not going to, it's not going to happen with everything.
Nope.
And some things
Nope.
it's just really not practical, you know, but even like seeing Abigail right now, she married somebody who loves hunting and fishing. And it's and she never cared about that before, but it's but she's embracing that's the life she has. And I'm pretty sure she really enjoys it,
Sure. But we know another family who are a bunch of hog hunters.
Yeah.
And his wife doesn't go out with them hog hunting.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You don't have to. Right.
She tried to early on, but then she started having a bunch of kids and she's like, well, when am I going to do this?
Right. Exactly.
And so sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Why are we doing everything together? We could split up our forces.
Yeah.
And anyway, next one.
Okay.
We're on number 10 now. We haven't been counting.
Well, I keep saying the number every time.
Okay, good for you.
Number 10. Once we get married, my partner will change.
If that's your expectation going into marriage, you got a rude awakening.
Yeah.
So who's the only one that can change me?
God.
You can help with that. There's no doubt, but God is the only one that can change me, and God is the only one that can change you.
Yeah.
And once we realize that, there's an old saying that says that when guys get married, they never want their wife to change. They want them to stay the way they are and don't change at all. And wives go in, or women go into marriage thinking, oh, I want my husband to change.
And the husbands then don't change, and the wives do, and that creates lots of problems.
Yes. So guys are who they are. So when you get married, this is who you're getting.
Right.
So if you've spent some time with them, don't expect them to change. Now, if there's sin issues and things like that, then of course they should change those actions. But their personality, who they are, what they're about, what they like, what their dislikes are, they can change slowly over time. Because
they might change, but I guess going in with the expectation that
you're going to change them,
right?
If you do, it's going to make the marriage worse.
Yeah.
Because if you could change me, then I'm trying to please you and deny myself, which is not a terrible thing all the time. But if I'm suppressing everything that I am, eventually I just can't keep that up if it's fake.
Yeah.
And so if I'm truly going to change as a person, it's got to be from God. It has to be from God.
Right. Well, and I think, maybe some younger people, they see older people that have changed through the years. Because I would say we both have changed some, in some areas or whatever. I think we've both made each other better. But it's not by force, and it's not by, let me just keep...
Change or else.
Right. So it's just over the years, hopefully we help each other to become even better at whatever it is that we do.
Yeah, we naturally are growing in that process, and we become a unit, and we look a certain way.
Right.
And we've worked it out to this way. There's not one blueprint for marriage.
No.
I mean, this is what you do, you end up like us. They're no, that's ridiculous, because there's so many factors that go into this. Yeah. But we work together and we do all these things. It'll go well. It'll go well for you. But yeah.
Yep. So number 11, letting little things go is better than starting a fight.
So it really depends on this one. This one I would say is kind of a truth. It just really depends on what those things are. Because I know some people don't let anything go. It's just, okay, you told me I got to be free and tell them what I'm thinking. Well, this annoys me, this annoys me, this annoys me, this and that annoys me. Well, that gets annoying, real quick. You'd be like, man, is nothing, good? And so every little thing are letting the little things go. But what are those little things?
Yeah,
that's what I would want to know.
It really does depend on what those things are, I would say.
Right. Having grace in your marriage is a wonderful thing. Yeah. And just be like, okay, if I'm kind of the slobby one in the family, and so in our marriage, and so if I'm leaving clothes on the floor, you could make a big deal about it, or you could just pick them up.
Right.
And so, are you letting it go so you don't avoid a fight? No. Because there's not going to be really a fight there.
I just don't care. I'm like, it's fine.
So if you're avoiding it to not start a fight, then that's a problem.
Right.
So you're basically,
if it's really bothering me, so I go and pick up your clothes, and each day, it just, eats away at something in me, and I'm just really irritated, but I'm like, I don't care, so I can let it go. I guess that's the thing. Sometimes you have to decide if you can let things go. Right. And hopefully as a Christian, I think it's a good thing to learn to have grace.
Well, this is, I think the myth though, is letting little things go is better than starting a fight. So, and I hate the word fight there,
Right, I
but
don't like that
but
either.
starting a disagreement or starting a discussion about an issue or something like that. So if I let this go, I don't want to fight. I don't want to get in an argument. That can be troublesome.
Yeah.
If that's the reason why you let it go. If
Right.
I'm letting it go just because I'm giving you grace, or
Right.
I'm just like, it's not that big of a deal. I'll pick it up, or I'll clean this, or I'll just be
Right.
like, I won't, I didn't like what she said there, but I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah.
But if it truly is to avoid something,
Right.
that's the problem.
That's the thing. If I'm afraid of like confronting you on something that's really bothering me, but I'm like, I just want to keep the peace
Yeah.
and it's all good. We don't want to fight right now. We don't want to argue or whatever. So that's not good. But
Yeah,
all right.
and I think a lot of women do that,
probably.
more so than guys. Well, I don't know, because guys want to avoid fights because they're just like, leave me alone. But I think women are more afraid of bringing that up because I might upset the apple cart here. And, but if it really is bugging you about something and you really are concerned, bring it to your husband. He cares, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
If not, we got the next episode talking about, no.
All right.
And the last one.
Number 12. Marriage is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Okay, this one's just stupid, but this is like the Forrest Gump thing.
The
But
thing is, though, that I think some people do think that it's just
It just happens?
It's a game of chance, and like people, look at our marriage and they're like, "Oh, we have a good marriage." Well, that's just because you married him.
got lucky.
That's just right.
Yeah.
It's a game
do
of
get
luck.
lucky.
But I'm like, it's not a game of luck.
No.
I'm like, it's something that you work towards. So I mean, it's not random.
Right.
You make it what you want it to be.
no, you're right. I'm not saying that this is luck. There is no way. But
Right.
some people can be more sensitive to what God wants. And some
Yeah.
people are a little bit more banging their head. And I'm not trying to say if you have a good marriage, it's because you're a little bit more sensitive.
Yeah.
But you can, obedience to what God wants you to do is going to go better for you.
Right.
And so, and what I'm basically on the simplistic level of this, because people are like, oh, so what you're saying is I'm not being obedient to God. But so basically, if the Bible says not to be unequally yoked,
Right.
okay, well, if you marry an unbeliever, you're going to have some issues.
Yeah.
It's going to be more difficult than if you marry a believer that has
Right.
the same values and has the same belief systems as you do. If you marry an unbeliever, it's going to be a little bit more problematic. Not impossible.
Right.
It's not, it's not saying that maybe that person gets saved, and then it can be redeemed and all that, but it's going to be more difficult.
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying is just that if you go into these things, it's not just luck.
No.
It's not just luck.
No.
So it doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort and
Yeah.
things like that. So we read the scriptures and we're like, hey, maybe we should do this. And we consider and be like, yep, we need to change.
Right.
Or we need to do some other things. So, it's not just...
No,
well,
it's not.
I got the chocolate that tastes like toothpaste, that's too bad.
No, it takes a lot of intentionality and,
I think you got the chocolate with the nuts.
Oh, okay.
I'm crazy, but
Wow. So no, I think it's there's no chance involved here.
No.
It's what we purpose in our hearts. Like, all right, no, we want to make this work. We want not just for our own benefit and our own happiness and pleasure, but for the glory of God. It's like, we're supposed to be an example.
I'm doing this for God first
Right.
and foremost, right?
Right.
And once we worship Him and serve Him and obey Him, then my next thing is looking towards others. And obviously you're kind of the first one. I'm married to you.
Yeah.
And then my family and then others around me, my neighbors and all that. And I need to show love that direction, but I first have to get that from God.
Yeah.
I think that's obvious. Okay, so you do have some Bible verses here.
I do. I had a few because I just felt like these kind of went with what we were talking about. So I have James 1, 14 and 15. It says, but every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. And when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. And boy, if this is not a picture of what happens in marriages at times, I'm like, we want to blame the other person, but it's like,
We blame the other
if
person.
I'm doing something wrong, I'm like, this is starting starting in my own heart. Like, so I can't be responsible for what you're doing, but I can.
Well, no, this goes well with the changing the other person. Like if he
Right.
just changes, I'm
Right.
like, well, it all comes from within, and our sins, our desires, and everything start right there. And so a lot of the issues in marriage start right there.
Yeah.
Why am I selfish? Why am I, I'm not getting what I want? Well, that's a selfish desire.
Right.
It may be a righteous desire, but it's still like, why am I'm pouting? I'm
Yeah.
being selfish. I need to humble myself and be like, okay, Lord, this is the right way to go. How can I get my spouse on board? How can how can we go this direction without me pouting?
Right.
And look, we're all human. I think we all pouted at some point.
So then I have Ephesians 4, 1 through 3. It says, I, therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that you walk worthy of the vocation wherewith ye are called, with all lowliness and meekness, with long-suffering, forbearing one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace.
That's a mouthful right there.
It is, but I'm like, wow, I know so often when we're thinking about marriage, we go to husbands love, wives submit, but I'm like, man, if you read this and you apply it to your marriage and you think, wow, I'm going to approach it with all lowliness and meekness, with long suffering and forbearing and whatever. I'm like,
long suffering and forbearing are interesting words. Like you suffer long, and you forbear. I mean, you give them the benefit of the doubt, basically, for a while, ahead of time.
Yeah.
And so forbear and long suffering.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's not your marriage, but
hopefully not, but hopefully you get the point. And then later on in the chapter, in verse 31 and 32, it says,
Ephesians 4.
Yes, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice, and be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good marriage verse too, because that's where a lot of marriages end up, right? Where they just cannot stand their spouse.
Right.
And by the time they try to go get help, it's almost too late.
Right.
And they are dug in their heels and all that. So this is a good verse. Like, hey, don't do those, do this.
Right. Yeah. And then I have 1 Peter 4:8, and above all things, have fervent charity among yourselves. For charity shall cover the multitude of sins, or love. So.
Love covers a multitude of sins.
So,
yes, charity does. So yeah, those are good verses. And so the 12 myths are really like the 12 expectations, you know, that you have, that this is going to happen. We all seek to have a utopia, like it's going to be we're going to have the perfect kids if we do this. We have the perfect marriage if we do this. It doesn't work that way. You're dealing with human beings, and sometimes human beings change. Yeah. And I might change my opinion about something, or I think, and you're like, wow, you just shocked me. Like, I didn't think you would. But so you have to learn to work with each other, and it's not easy. It's not by chance, and it's not easy, but it doesn't have to be difficult either, if that makes sense.
And it's very rewarding. And when it does take work, people think, oh, that sounds grueling, so difficult and unpleasant. And there can be, sure, unpleasant moments. But I'm like, but when you work through that and you want to honor God with what you do, and okay, let's work through this, even though it might be unpleasant and uncomfortable, but then it is glorious, and it's a wonderful thing, and it's meant to be.
Sure.
So.
That's what we know. I mean, it's all glorious and wonderful, and not to say that we've never had our disagreements, but anyway, marriage is a wonderful thing, and for all your singles out there, thank you for putting up for this segment. But anyway, that is the 12 myths that we came up with. How well do you know your Bible? All right. How well do you know your Bible? I want to thank Chuck for stopping in on his vacation to do that segment with us there. That was really nice of him. Yeah. So anyway, this week we are moving along. We're still in the wisdom books, and this is an interesting one, Ecclesiastes.
Wow, babe, listen to how you said it. I'm impressed.
Okay, I pronounce it Ecclesiastes, and she's like, there's no I or E or whatever. I'm like, there's a bunch of E's and I's and A's. Ecclesiastes.
Okay, but between the S and the T, there's no vowels. So
Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, see, you're adding syllables that I don't think are there. But anyway, that's okay.
That's how my preacher, said it. So anyways, that's how I try to say it. But Ecclesiastes. Anyways, so anyway, obviously when you think of Ecclesiastes, what do you think of?
Vanity.
Vanity, vanity, vanity. However, you want to start the first verse of the book. And you have the second verse, but the first book is
First verse.
yeah, I'm sorry. First verse. Most people assume that Solomon, and I don't have any reason not to, but it doesn't call himself Solomon. He calls himself the preacher. Which, that kind of preacher, the Hebrew word there for preacher kind of has the indication of a public speaker, like a teacher. And so this is a teacher that he is giving lessons to the people. So this is kind of applied learning here. And so he's not, this isn't necessarily someone's life experiences per se, but he's going to show the vanity of life, which I want to go back to vanity real quick, because that shows up how many times? 33 times?
33 times.
Vanity of vanities. You look up that Hebrew word, and some translations translate it meaninglessness, meaninglessness, the meaningless, which is really unfortunate. But vanity is a little bit better, but it kind of has the idea of vapor, smoke. You know, something that doesn't, think about how it's used too. Like you go to grab it and it's like smoke. You can't grab it. It's fleeting. It doesn't last very long. It's like breath. You can't. So it doesn't. It's that's kind of where the vanity comes from. It's quick. Yeah. It's not to be grasped really. And my mic is going out. Okay, I was told not to touch it, so I won't touch it. I'm sorry.
Well, and I read that one thing said vanity is the futile emptiness of trying to be happy apart from God. And I thought that's very true.
Well, and that's kind of what the whole book is about.
Yeah.
So people's attempt that it's kind of a depressing book. A lot of people give this book a lot of problems. They're like, this is just a backslidden preacher, a backslidden king, and Solomon was backslidden and all that. I don't see it that way at all. I actually find this book very liberating. And a lot of people are like, how do you get that from all this negativity? Well, because you have all the wisdom of the world, basically. Right. That this is how you get pleasure, through your work, through pleasure, through all these endeavors, and it's all kind of like trying to get grasped. It's meaningless. It's vanity. It's short-lived. It's not fulfilling at all. Right. And anything apart from God is going to do that. It's going
to be that. It's eventually, it just disappears. And we can have pleasure and we can,
accumulate
wealth.
Okay.
I don't know what the word is.
Yeah, accumulate wealth.
Okay.
Yep.
And,
we don't do that, but yes.
No, but we do all these things thinking that it's going to bring all this fulfillment, not just pleasure, but fulfillment, satisfaction. Yeah. We're going to feel like we've arrived, but look at, in life,
at the end of it, it's vanity. And like what they say in the book, it's like you spend all your time building up business and stuff and hand it over to people don't even care, don't even know. And they didn't earn it. They didn't work for it. Yeah. And, but yeah, going back, I heard a preacher one time, he was talking about the wonder of life, and to a 2-year-old, the wonder of life is tremendous. Yeah. Just knocking on the door, and who's behind that door? Who's going to open? Is it the mailman bringing a package? Who is it? Is it what's behind that door? Whereas adults, we get we don't care. We know what's at the door, but what replaces that wonder as we grow older? The wonder of life gets less and less, which is kind of like Ecclesiastes here, where it's, yes, you can laugh, but it's kind of like this Ecclesiastes, the story. Just as we get older, we're not impressed with this life, right? But what this preacher was saying was that the only thing that can fill our sense of wonder is God. Yeah. And I think at the end of this book, we get that revelation where it's apart from God, everything is meaningless. There's nothing There's nothing worth anything. And so I take pleasure in that, knowing that, hey, I can just live my life. I can't control everything. Mm-hmm. And I think people with control issues really struggle with this book because they're like, well, I want to fix everything. But knowing that I can't control the outcome, we're all going to die. I don't know when we're going to die. The rich, the poor, they die. The strong, the weak, they die. Everybody dies. And so that's the leveling playing ground, right? Yeah. And so knowing that, I can't control when I die, what happens. There's a famine for whatever reason, a flood. I can't help these things. So I just go on, live my life, and love God.
Right.
and get busy doing his work.
Right.
That gives me a lot of pleasure knowing that all this other stuff, as vain as it may be, like mowing the grass, needs to get done, but it's not that important. You know, all these things are important, but they're not that important. I don't know. That's kind of what Ecclesiastes means to me.
Well, and I like it because I feel like it gives such to me an eternal perspective, because the things that are temporal in this life
are temporal.
They're just simply temporal, and they don't last. And of course, you know, I mean, I think it's good to cut your grass, and it's good to, you know, take care of things, and it's good
Take a shower.
Right. All of these things that we do, but we do know that it's all just fleeting, and it's all just passing.
It's a vapor.
And,
it's a smoke. It's a breath.
So what really matters is what's eternal.
Right.
And I think that's always good when we can put our focus back on, okay, why are we doing this? Why are we here? What is this all about? You know?
Right. You skipped, you didn't want to go over through some of that. Did I kind of
I feel
go
like
through
you
that?
kind of did. So it'd be redundant.
Yeah. So some of the end, one of the end verses, I know you wanted to go through some of the verses, but the last verse, well, not the last verse, but basically the chief end of everything, you know, is, what is it? You have that verse right there. It's 12, 13, 14.
Right. It says, and further by these, my son, be admonished, of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh, which kids love to quote.
Well, that's what they say. Even in this book, where it's like even the wisdom of this, you know, the study and all that stuff can be vain too.
Right.
And anyway, so yes.
So, and then it says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter.
So what's the conclusion of the whole matter?
Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
So we can't control everything. We don't know everything. Things happen sometimes. Things don't, whatever it is. But here's the thing. Just do what God says. Just love him and keep his commandments. And that's the whole duty of man. Yeah. And so all these other things, like why am I trying to increase my business? Why am I trying to increase my pleasure? I'm not saying those things are bad necessarily, but just know it's all vanity. Right. It's all a fleeting smoke, breath, vapor that you can't grasp and keep forever. We all die. We can't take it with us.
Right.
That's kind of it. So what are some of the good verses that we have?
Well,
and it's the Bible, right? But what are some?
Ecclesiastes 3 starts with this whole big dialogue with, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal. And it goes on and on and on. Time for this.
It's a famous song by the Byrds, secular song.
I think it's good to remind us that, you know, there are seasons. We did a whole series on seasons of life. And even in marriage, it's like there's seasons. And for me, it's like, you know, for so many years I wanted to be a mom, and then it's like, okay, we had all these kids and I'm just busy homeschooling and raising all these kids. And now all of a sudden
it's
like,
grandma.
Whoa, like that's over.
Right, it's over.
Like, what do I do now?
That was fleeting.
It's not totally over, but I mean, it's close to being over with that
it's not
part.
over.
But, you know, and it's like, okay, well, that's a season. I didn't realize, you know, for years when you're in the middle of it, you just think this is forever.
Right.
But I'm like, no, everything has a season. You know, as we can see from outside, it's like things grow and then they die and then it's a new season and whatever. So anyway, I think that's, you know, to me, it's good to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when you're going through harder times, you're like, it's a season. It'll pass.
This too shall pass, right?
Anyway, and then, I mean, I just have Ecclesiastes 12:8 says, vanity of vanity, say the preacher, all is vanity, which is how he started the book. Right. So, I mean, he went through all these things and he ends with, it's all vanity.
Right.
So
it is all vanity, but that should be encouraging. Yeah. And I started hearing some of these things. We went to in 2005. Yes, 2005. We went to a conference, Ecclesiastes conference. Yeah. And it's where I met the Grimms. Hey, shout out. And but I was thinking, Ecclesiastes. This is
Larry.
What's he doing?
What are you doing?
He was at the conference with us, and I thought, what are we going to get out of Ecclesiastes? Because I was one of those that this is just a backslidden preacher. He's just very negative. But after going through the conference, I'm like, this is actually a very encouraging book. Because I am one of those that I don't question what happens in life, that just take it as it comes. And I'm like, well, that's kind of what it is. It's like, I can't control the outcomes. Yeah. So I'm just going to enjoy God and enjoy what I'm doing and let the rest, fall where it may. But I'm like, I can only control what I control. So yeah, it was a really encouraging book, and obviously, the last verses there, where this is the
Whole conclusion.
Yeah, the whole conclusion of it, and I think I added to it. It says, "Fear God and keep His commands." I said, "Love God," but
Okay.
I think,
Well, we can love him too.
Yeah,
I
love
think
God.
if you fear him, you might love him.
Yes.
And I mean, it is only 12 chapters, so it's not a difficult read.
Yeah, and it's like this is the life of other people making mistakes. So learn from other people's mistakes and don't get caught up. So many people get caught up in this world, and I get it because we live in it,
Right.
and it seems like it's going to be here forever, but it's not. So anyway, that's the book of Ecclesiastes.
Missionary Stories with Chuck.
All righty. This feels a little different. I feel like a time warp or something. But anyway, we got the Missionary Stories, the next one here. As you know, that Chuck is with us for this one.
Yep, we're here.
So he's not with us in the first segment, but he was with us here.
That's right.
The magic of technology.
Amazing.
Okay, we don't know this person.
No, we don't.
This
I don't
is
know
a
this
new
person. So this
person.
will be interesting to hear.
Yep.
The title of this one is "He Wasn't Crazy."
Once again, same book.
Yep. Missionary Stories with the Millers. He wasn't crazy, so we'll see
Yep.
who he is and figure it out.
They're missionaries. They're all crazy in a good way.
Look at that, Mr. Walker, whispered a young man in a flashy clothing to a woman beside him. I think he's gone crazy. The woman took a sip of her whiskey cocktail and giggled as she looked where her boyfriend was pointing. Behind the bar stood the owner himself, a huge black man. Usually, Ludlow Walker had a jolly grin and a joke for every customer. But today, his face seemed to be distraught with fear. Great drops of sweat rolled down his forehead as he stared at the book in his hand. His lips moved feverishly, reading the words from the yellowed pages. "Hey, man, what you got there?" came the raucous voice of a customer on one of the bar stools. "What are you reading, man?" "Don't bother me," Ludlow murmured. "Where was I? Yes. The Lord cometh to judge the earth. With righteousness shall he judge the world and the people," he read aloud.
That's going to sober everyone in there.
A ripple of uneasiness swept over the crowd of drinkers. "That's a Bible," muttered someone. "He's crazy for true." "Hey, Ludlow, come here. I'll give you a cigarette. That'll make you feel better," teased the lady. "Come on, Mr. Walker. Turn on some dance music," someone else shouted. A man in an expensive suit slipped his own full glass along the countertop toward Ludlow. "Here, man," he said softly. "Drink this quickly. You'll need it. You need it worse than I do." Ludlow Walker raised his head and looked full in the face of his friend. "No," he spoke deliberately. "I won't drink that. I will never drink liquor again." A snort of laughter rose from several of the customers, but most sat in horrified silence. "Crazy," someone muttered. "What's going on? Let's get out of here." He headed for the door, and one by one the other drinkers followed him. Alone at the bar, Ludlow read on. He could not explain the mysterious sense of conviction which had gripped him that afternoon and caused him to search for this old Bible among his dead father's treasures. He didn't know much about God's plan of salvation, but he knew that he wanted God in his life. "Lord, help me," he prayed. "I want your power to change me. I've had enough of sin and darkness." At last, secure in the knowledge that God had heard him, Ludlow went to his bed. In the morning, he awoke with a prayer in his heart. "Lord, what shall I do next?" "You must find other Christians," came the answer from God. "The missionaries," Ludlow thought immediately. "The Mennonite missionary ladies in the village who give away free eyeglasses to the poor. I will go to talk to them." 2 days later, Ludlow made his way to the door of the little mission house, and soon he was telling Nancy and Alta Koblenz, the mission sisters,
good luck with that name.
about his experience. "Everyone said I was crazy," he finished with a chuckle, "but you don't think I've lost my mind, do you?" "No, indeed," Nancy replied firmly. "You haven't lost your mind. Your mind has been renewed. That is what God does for us. We have been praying for you, Mr. Walker, and God has answered our prayer. she called for the pastor of the church, Brother Gilbert Stevens. That one was easier.
Yes. Stevens?
He explained more to Ludlow about the way of salvation, how the Christians rejoiced as they spoke with this new brother in the Lord. But not everyone was happy with the news. When Ludlow Walker's friends and customers heard of the change in his life, they were disappointed and angry. Ludlow's motel and bar were famous throughout the country. Government leaders, tourists, and rich businessmen loved to sit and drink in his popular, colorful cocktail lounge.
So he was the owner.
He was the owner.
Yep.
Was Ludlow going to close the place down? What would happen next?
Oh, suspension.
Many people laughed and mocked at Ludlow. He won't last long, they scoffed. He loves money too much. He can't give up this nice business. Surely not. One afternoon, a rowdy group of
That's right.
One afternoon, a rowdy group of men came and demanded rooms in the motel. They were drunken and dangerous, and their leader began to threaten Ludlow. When I'm like this, it's easy for me to kill people, he growled. I'm going to get you if you don't give up your crazy idea of being a Christian and closing this place. Ludlow shuddered. This was serious. Lord, he prayed, I'm scared. Help me. Show me some sign that you're with me. The evening sky had been perfectly clear before Ludlow prayed, but suddenly it was full of black clouds. Thunder boomed and forked lightning exploded close by. The hostile man was astonished and frightened. You did that, man? He gasped, looking at Ludlow with eyes full of superstitious fear. I saw you pray. Picking up his liquor bottle, he backed away. Ludlow laughed triumphantly. No, I didn't do it, he replied. God did. Crack! The lightning struck again, and huge drops of rain began to fall. The angry, drunken man suddenly seemed quite sober. Turning away, he ran to his room and slammed the door. Come back, Ludlow cried, hurrying after him. Don't you want to come out and see what else God can do? But there was no reply. Inside the locked room, the man and his friends had switched off their lights and were huddled fearfully in the darkness together. Ludlow knelt alone on the sun deck and gave thanks to God. At once, the rain and thunder stopped. All the black clouds slipped away, revealing a fresh, beautiful, moonlit sky. Rejoicing at the way God had protected him, Ludlow went home to his bed. At daybreak, the men who had threatened him quietly sneaked away. When Ludlow returned to his motel in the morning, he stood silently looking around the empty barroom. Lord, he questioned softly, what shall I do with all of this? If I sell it, or even give it away, it will cause other people to sin. Even as he prayed, Ludlow knew the answer. Chuckling, he picked up an armload of half-empty liquor bottles and strode outside, where he called for the motel janitor. Here's some weed killer, Ludlow told his workmen. We're going to pour it all out on the grounds and driveway, wherever there are weeds. Before the surprised man could reply, his boss had gone back for another load. As hundreds of dollars worth of expensive liquors gurgled out onto the ground, a crowd of curious people gathered to watch. What is he doing? He is crazy, they muttered. The evil drinks sparkled in the sunshine, and Ludlow Walker laughed happily. We are getting rid of the devil's poison, he explained to the people. It will kill the weeds, so what do you think it does to the folks that drink it? Shaking their heads,
kind of true.
The onlookers drifted away. A few days later, they came back to share again at the strange sight of Ludlow and some workmen tearing down the whole building. With sledgehammers and crowbars, they separated cement blocks and boards. Piece by piece, the famous cocktail lounge was being ripped apart. We will sell it for scrap, the owner said with a satisfied smile. Poor folks may use the pieces to build houses, but no one will ever drink liquor here again. Did you hear the latest about Ludlow Walker? Asked one villager of his neighbor a few years later. He's a minister now. The other man sighed. Well, we all said he was crazy, but I guess God changed him, he added wistfully. Wouldn't you sort of like to have what he has? The historical note is that Ludlow Walker was a wealthy man who lived in Hattieville, Belize in 1980.
Okay.
He was obsessed with making money and more money. Someday, he believed, he would be one of the world's richest men. But one day, Ludlow realized that money was not bringing him happiness, only greed and fear. In his torment and disappointment, he reached for his father's old Bible, where he found the answer. Today, Ludlow Walker is the pastor of a church in southern Florida. He also runs a mission called Shipwatch, and the great seaport of Miami, where merchant ships come from all over the world. Brother Ludlow and groups of volunteers preach, sing, witness, and give away Bibles and tracts in many languages to the sailors.
Well, as of the writing, we don't know exactly where he is today.
Yep,
But
don't know if he's still there or even alive. But
that is
that's
interesting.
That is
He just
pretty
picked
cool.
up his dad's Bible at the bar and started reading it, and I didn't say what verse it was, but the judgment that's coming,
Yep.
and that drew him to fear, and amazing. So yeah, cool story, man.
Yeah, it is.
Ludlow Walker.
Ludlow Walker.
So yeah, look him up. I don't know where he is
Yeah,
right
I'll
now,
go look
but
him
yeah, Ludlow Walker.
Music with Sarah.
What song do you like?
All right. Oh, I touched the mic. I wasn't supposed to touch the mic. I'm sorry. I touched the mic. All right. It's another week, another song, and this is the song of the week, and it is.
This one's called "It Is Finished" by Matt
We're not
Redman.
doing any more songs of the week.
Well, it says it is finished.
Oh no. By Matt Redman, right?
Yes.
It is
and
finished.
Of course, it is finished. You know, everybody's first thought is when
On the
Jesus
cross.
was on the cross. That's
Yep.
what he said. It is finished. And that's actually what it's about.
Yep.
And this, I will say, is an anthem song.
It's an anthem song because it's in the lyrics.
So it starts with, amplify your anthem of grace within my soul. Like, wow, I mean, this is like so big, you know?
Big.
Let me hear the wonders of your redeeming love, and let me hear those saving words you spoke upon the cross, because those were saving words when he
Right.
said it is finished.
That's it.
It was done. And so then
To Telestai,
if you say so.
it is finished.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I think so.
So then the chorus says,
Someone's checking on me right now.
it is finished, it is finished. Oh, what else is there to say? Shame is silenced, death defeated. Hallelujah, God be praised. And this is a fun song.
That's fun. It's upbeat.
It is. It's
fun.
upbeat, and I think it's a fun song. But it's fun, and yet it's an anthem. It's like, I want to declare it. It's done.
Declare it.
Then it says, no more condemnation. You had the final word. There's nothing that can hold me. There's nothing now to dread. Oh, I can hear those healing words you cried upon the cross. And then it goes back to the chorus, and then it has a little bridge that says, I hear a symphony of grace, your song of mercy, call my name. I stand in awe, I stand amazed. Hallelujah, God be praised. And it's upbeat song.
Yeah,
it's
it's
happy. It's a great thing
happy.
to be reminded of.
It's simple, actually.
It is
One
simple.
thing I like about Matt Redman songs is they're simple to play. He doesn't
Yeah.
have complicated. You know, it's for praising and worship. You know,
Right.
it's designed for us to be able to pick up the guitar and just play it,
Yeah.
sing it, and it's not complicated at all. And so that's good too.
Yeah, but great thing to just remember that it is done.
It is
and
finished.
so we're here, and we work and we strive and all this, but we need to remind ourselves that, look,
You
he
do
already,
work and strive.
well, sometimes,
Okay.
you know, but I'm like, but the work's already been done.
It's been
and
done.
It's all completed.
You're fighting a battle that's already been done.
Oh, that's another song.
Oh,
So.
yes. Yeah, we got to talk about that
Anyway,
one.
so it's on an album called Glory Song,
Glory song.
which is a great album too. So
Yep.
listen to the rest of them. But anyway, yeah.
It is finished by Matt Redman on Glory Song. Look it up. Go check it out and see what you think.
The Mike Charleston Show is brought to you by Fellowship of Believers. For more information, go to our website at fellowshipofbelievers.org. Thank you for listening. We hope we have encouraged you to stand strong in the Lord Jesus and grow in Him.